go back to what Nancy was talking about, in clarification of some of the things that we're working on, we're trying to get plumbing education in schools. So the way this works is the schools are looking to add something to their vocational programs. It's up to us as employers to contact the schools to request them. I've been in a number of meetings, and the most recent one is with the Hutto School District. They've actually said that they have a lot of contractors, a lot of employers calling the schools saying, how can we get plumbers? How can we get electricians? How can we get these kids? So the more you request the school district, the more active this is going to become. What we've done in the Taylor School District is just a model that everybody is going to be going after, okay? So everybody understand how that system works? Any questions on that?
I have one question. Do we know the minimum age requirement for a apprentice card? Is there 16? It's 16? So you just got to be 16? So it'd be legal working age, I guess, right?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do, one of the things we're working on is to try to get rid of these fly-by-night schools that offer a 4-week plumbing course. And it's embarrassing to the industry. It's hard on the parents to spend $2,000 to the kids to go get 4 weeks of training and figure out this it's a waste. So we're trying to get accredited schools, trying to get our schools, union schools, these kind of schools that are taught in our industries that are taught properly. So everything has to go through a Department of Labor school, okay? House Bill 5 needs our support. It's going to be, I think it's the very best way that us as an industry, plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning guys, trades, can get kids back into the industry. So when you talk to your legislatures, talk to your representatives, be sure you mention what we're doing, because we need to help it stay in place. Let's see. Other thing that clarify what Nancy was saying. When the kids get in school, the very first thing that we're doing at TSTC, for example, and I would assume every one of the schools that are being taught, if they're taught properly, they're going to be taught by a master plumber. So the very first thing we're doing at the TSTC school is the very first day is signing them up for their apprenticeship licenses and getting them signed up under that master plumber that's teaching the class. The ones that are working for me, obviously they'll have my signatures on them and you as well. So I know there are kids over at TSTC right now that are looking for jobs. So, and I'll be the first to tell you, because I had this conversation yesterday with TSTC, their school is not that great, not compared to what we're doing, what the unions are doing. So we've got to go through and I'm working with those guys to try to redo their curriculum. They're teaching things like septic installations. You know, of course, we all do septic. Some of us older ones have done septic before, but it's not part of our plumbing license now. So I said, when we started this semester, I said, why don't you teach them how to install the sewer line and run grade on that. So technically it's a septic course, but they're teaching how to shoot grades and run sewer lines and that class. So it works, but we got some work to do to clean up theirs to fit properly. What else? I think that's got it good. Ski barbecue. Hey, Amy, did we like the barbecue better than the sandwiches? That works good.
Where's the cookies at?
She knew you were going to ask. She was just waiting and knew it.
You could have little bowls of candy and all that kind of stuff.
I know. We'll remind her.
I want to introduce John Lain to you. He's with the Texas Department of License and Registration, so everybody has to pull out their plumbing license and sit it on the corner for inspection as he walks up. I'm joking. Everybody relax.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everybody. Lisa, good to see you again, too. It's good crowd in spite of the weather. Well, that reminds me of many years in the air conditioning business, the Rheem brand on water heaters and air conditioners. Forgive me, I've got a little health condition and I can't stand for very long. Few of PHC staff knows some parts of that illness. But anyway, we're all getting old. We're saying we can look around the gray hairs, the no hairs, and
I died here.
forgive me. I travel across the state with what I call talking points. If I don't have these, I get off point. I'm liable to chase that rabbit down the fence row. How many air conditioning contractors in the room? I heard several of the businesses. I know you go both ways on the plumbing and the air conditioning. Okay, all right, good, good. So we've got good representation, and with one inspector in the room. Okay.
Hey, they called me out.
Well, besides Mike and Lisa and myself, you know. Okay, so good. All right, I'm going to make this as brief as I can. Many of you that know me know that I can talk. Got to use my cheat notes, and as we go along here, if there's anything that is cause for concern or heartburn, speak up. Let's hear. I want to hear it. Basically, I'm just going to walk you through some things the agency's been doing, internal, and then how it affects our industry. How many have been to our website lately? It's new, it's improved, it's better than
Very
time.
nice, very nice.
All right, we've got some staff that are in that division that do that for us. Quite frankly, the old website I didn't think was that bad. I could navigate it pretty well, but people wanted something new and improved, and they got it, and I kind of like it too. Anyway, if you haven't seen our new website, I guess it's easier to navigate. Maybe you'll find some information there that you need. I want to point that out for you. Nancy was talking about the legislative session and such. How many of you know that, and I'm not a lawyer, so don't pin me down on all the details, but how many of you know that we're required by statute, by law, to periodically review our rules? You guys, ladies, you'll know that the legislature gives us the law, and then we have the authority to promulgate rules, which some tell me is to make the law more understandable. Well, by the time all of us get done with it, sometimes I'm not so sure that the rule isn't more confusing. Anyway, that process is going on for the TDLR right now with the air conditioning program. Actually, the deadline closed January 12th, and everybody in the room probably familiar with this process knows that it'll have to go through the public hearing. But basically, we did this a couple of years ago and did some cleanup, as Nancy referred to. Still, what we want to hear from you guys as stakeholders, license holders, is there any part of that rule that's obsolete? Any part of it that needs to go away, or any part of it that needs to be revised? So encourage you there on that new improved website to go look at your air conditioning rule, your Rule 75, which tells all of us about how we're supposed to do our business. If there's anything in there that you want to see changed, now would be the time to put those comments. There's a web address on the web page that lets you enter your comments, and hopefully you'll have some, if not suggested changes, comments. All of our air conditioning guys in the room know that January 1, the minimum SEER on air conditioners is 14, right? No? Okay. How many are familiar with all the games played in Washington and the lawsuit and all the people involved with the minimum efficiency standards? Anyway, the long and the short of that is that the new minimum air conditioning efficiency as of January 1st of this year is 14. Used to be 13, right? Okay. But because of that big government getting involved in our business to the extent that there was a successful lawsuit that at least said, and I'm proud of this personally, even though I don't have a dog in the hunt as, you know, not an active contractor anymore, if that equipment was manufactured, 13 SEER equipment we're talking about, if it was manufactured before January 1st of this year, those contractors, you guys are going to have until June of next year to install 13 SEER. And it's obvious to all of us, you can't just turn the valve off. You've got manufacturers, you've got production, you've got vendors and purchasing going on, whereby that product, if it's no longer, the expectation is reasonable that there's no longer any production of 13 SEER equipment, but a bunch of it could be in warehouses, on trucks, all over the place, right? So I think it's fair that you guys can continue to install the 13 SEER. And I guess what I say specific to us cops in the room. If there's a consumer complaint with our agency and I'm out on the job, I would expect on July 1st of next year to see a 14 SEER rating on that air conditioner. And so our agency's not going to be severely harsh, I'll just tell you that. If that equipment's properly installed, if it's performing as intended, you know, it's a federal requirement we're all required to participate in and support. I'm glad. My problem, and I'll just tell you, not so much new construction, but we know in our industry, the majority of the business that occurs is replacement. And it looks to me like a real train wreck for our agency and the contractors that are going to try to put a 14 SEER outdoor unit on an existing air handler evaporator coil. If it works, no harm, no foul, right? Who cares? But in the event there is a consumer complaint, and I understand resources and people's, you know, limited incomes, and you find yourself as a contractor in a situation where you put that 14 SEER back on that older 10 SEER, 13 SEER system. Will it work? Maybe. I don't know. Just be advised that that's something that we want to pay attention to. Lisa, y'all have an advisory board. Everybody has an advisory board. We do. It grows, it seems, every session. We're now up to 9 members. That includes a builder. The builders wanted to be involved in our business, both the electrical board and the air conditioning board over at TDLR, and they added a private member. Anyway, of those 9, 4 positions are available, open right now. One of those is that public member, no license is required. We lost both. Well, I say we lost, their terms expired. One retired, Mr. Richard Vrana down City of Houston, he's retired. So he sat on our board as one of the mechanical inspectors, mechanical official, required to be on the board. So we've got a need at the agency for 2 building officials. One needs to come from a city population 250,000 or more, and the other one needs to come from a city smaller than that. So as you guys travel and you find those that, you know, might have an interest, that have that credential, we'd like to have them apply. I don't know what will happen. I really honestly don't. With those current members, you might ask the question, well, where did they go? They may reapply. And the commission, you guys know our commission, the governor appoints a commission body over our agency. That decision will be made by the commission chair and voted on with a majority approval of commission members. But there's 4, and I mentioned 3, and then we are looking for a B license holder from a population over 250,000. David Munoz, many of you may know him. He's chairman currently, been doing a great job for many years. He has the B license for San Antonio, and I haven't talked to David. I don't know if he's intending to run again or apply, but know that you and your license holders and others interested, there's 4 positions available, and we can't govern effectively without that participation. So spread the word for us. You know, Nancy said it, and I'm up here, and I'm expecting Lisa will the same. We always come to you with our hat in our hand, and we're wanting help, you know, to do the things that need to be done to hopefully make your industry better, stronger. January 1st of this year, TDLR went to the 2012 codes. Everybody knew that. We had been on the 09. At our agency, at least right now with current management, and I concur, we like to stay one code cycle behind our most progressive cities in Texas. I can report to you that I know for a fact San Antonio, which is very progressive, and the city of Amarillo, they'll be adopting the 2015 codes in the spring, first quarter. I don't know exactly when, but I've got it on authority that that'll be happening. I've looked at the 2015 codes. There's some substantial changes, and then there's some stuff that carries forward from the 2012. We had just been on the 09 code at TDLR, so all of us remember what happened there from the 06 with the duct leakage testing and all the stuff that began to happen with that part of our business. So I would encourage all of you, if you haven't updated your library with new code books, then get a hold of your international residential code if you're primarily involved in residential work, and of course the mechanical codes, uniform, and the international if you do commercial work. Certainly you need both if you're involved crossing over. I don't want to get into a bunch of detail with you here, but these are notes that as I travel around the state and I talk to the ACCA membership also, in our business, more and more of you are hearing about the need for mechanical ventilation, fresh air, outside air. We see that these houses are indeed being built better, tighter. And some people would tell you that, you know, we're building these houses too tight. I'm not in that circle. I don't believe you can build a home too tight, but I believe that you need to ventilate it right. Okay? So, Chapter 15 of the 2012 International Residential Code is pretty explicit on what needs to happen there. But there's rumors and there's all kinds of heartburn across the state as to how do we have to do that. Well, you can do it as much as your customer can afford or what y'all can agree on, but I would want you guys to leave here to understand, at our agency, as we understand that part of the code, if you guys are simply adding a fresh air duct to the return air of your conventional forced air systems, we think that meets code. You know, now you need to have your backdraft damper, you know, you need to have your bird screen, and you got to have your weatherproof on your outside louver. But if I look at, or City of Austin or whoever, they should be able to look at that and say, okay, there's some fresh air being brought in. Well, the calculations come to mind, and you can do the formula, and you can lose your mind trying to get the right answer. You can go to the table. I would say to you, all of you, most of you in this room should know that forever and ever, regardless of how tight our buildings got, we need 15 CFM per person, right? So then the way that's calculated is we figure 2 people in the bedroom and then 1 person for every other bedroom. So that's pretty simple to figure out. I would say to you, if you looked at Chapter 15, you looked at that table, if you looked at between a 1,500 and 3,000 square foot house, if you're adding between 65 and 100 something CFM per home, as I just described with that simple duct, you're going to meet the code. You say, why do I care? Well, maybe you don't. But in the event that there is a complaint filed and we have to investigate and we do the inspection and then we go to the code, that's our Bible, that's our reference point, and we don't see the fresh air, then we got a problem, right? Okay? But just 15 CFM per person, a simple 6-inch, 7-inch duct, you know, with proper duct practices. Carbon monoxide detectors, everybody knows they're required now, right? The only thing I want to say about that is, in our business, I don't know so much about y'all's, Lisa, Mike, you have home warranty companies?
Oh, yeah. And you mean involved in complaints, right?
Well, fraud and misrepresentation?
We won't go there.
I had a guy argue with me last week. He's a licensed air conditioning contractor. He's an approved AC provider for a home warranty company. And he needed to replace this gas furnace. And he was insistent that that customer was going to pay him for carbon monoxide detectors or he wasn't going to install that gas furnace. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in the enforcement division. I don't have any say-so on what your penalty, if any, will be. But here's the deal. The code's very clear that it says that carbon monoxide detectors need to be added on a new, of course, and a addition alteration if a permit is required. Carbon monoxide detectors have to exist. What I love about the code book is it doesn't say who has to install it. So it could be the homeowner, couldn't it? It could be a simple from your favorite hardware store plug-in, or it could be with your electrician wired up. All it tells us, I even had an argument with this other individual. He said, well, this house is heat pump. It's all electric. Well, there were some smarter people than me that wrote that part of the code, and it says if the garage is attached to the structure, it's also got to have carbon monoxide detectors, because there's a pretty big carbon monoxide machine in the garage, right? Got that tailpipe that comes out of the back of the bumper, and we hear every year, not so much here, but other parts of the country, where cold weather, they go into the garage, they turn on the vehicle, and then, particularly with a 2-story, right? So anyway, that's a good thing, I think, that, you know, but just be advised that you say, well, John Lain, TDLR, said I got to sell you carbon monoxide.
Quote you on that.
All I said was the code says going forward from this date that it's got to, if a permit was required, a permit was obtained, then we want to make sure that the people have extra protection regarding that. R8 on the supply duct, everybody knows that. There's been some question. How many people are familiar with the State Energy Conservation Office, Texas A&M Energy Systems Laboratory, and what used to be the 14 SEER trade-off on R6, R8 duct? Anybody ever heard about those urban legends? That was a good program back through the 2006 code, and it's about to raise its ugly head across the state because when the 09 code was adopted by the state of Texas through the Comptroller's Office, which is what we know as SECO, State Energy Conservation Office, Chapter 11 for all of us in the residential code book, the SEER 14 R6 trade-off went away. Okay, so unless that home, we're talking new construction here for example, unless that home has encapsulated foam attic, that duct needs to be R8 in the attic. Okay, you guys may remember the 06 code, it was R8 for supply and return, right? The 09 changed that and made R8 just for the supply duct. Return duct can be R6. I will tell you, code writers, in the 2015 cycle, and you heard me say, we just adopted the 2012. We're not going to be in a real big hurry at TDLR to adopt the 2015, but I want to share some things with you about that. When the 2015 Amarillo, I said, San Antonio, right, you have to do what your city says. I mean, the local authority having jurisdiction is what you're bound by. We think, for the most part across Texas, if you're doing your work, air conditioning work, mechanical work per the 2012 code, you're going to be home free and safe with all of your cities and municipalities. The 2015 code, everything has to be R8, all ducts. But now, and I don't think it's a big issue, only if it's 3 inches or larger. So, you know, I guess we're thinking about some exhaust ducts and stuff like that. That's some stuff I don't know that we need to go over, and it was just about your builder and the performance method. Any of you in here doing new construction, residential new construction? Okay. There's been a debate, I'll just touch it briefly. The code basically tells us 3 things relative to energy and how to construct a new building. It's all mandatory, right? Everybody understands, you read the code, if it says mandatory, everybody has to do it, right? And then there's what's called prescriptive or performance. Most of us in this world, we would prefer prescriptive, which means you just do what the code book says. Which mainly, if you just do what the manufacturer's instructions say, you're good to go. A lot of your large tract home builders, for whatever reason, they're doing the performance method, and they have been approved by the local jurisdiction to do that. However, there's some print in there, and it's not fine print, that says if that builder builds that home performance method, all mandatory items have to be met, which for us is a manual J load calculation, and more importantly, a manual S sizing. Manual S sizing says the air conditioner can't be 15% larger than the calculated load or bigger than 140%. Well, some of these large companies are putting in 5 tons when their load calculation was 3 tons. So if they load calculated a 3 ton, put a 5 ton in, did they meet the mandatory requirements to be able to build that home performance? I say to you, no. So just be careful as you go about your business. If your builder says, I'm going to beef up this wall and I've been approved by the city to build this home performance method, make sure that you're in compliance so that later on you don't get hung out to dry, because obviously we don't regulate the builder, do we? We regulate the license guy. And when it's all said and done, it's like, ouch. You know, his load, we're looking at one in San Antonio right now. The real load is brand new home, well built, all the features that you can think of, and the AC contractor's load, cooling load, is 3 tons. Well, he put a 5 ton in. Yikes. The builder's building performance. 5 tons more than 15% bigger than a 3 ton, isn't it? Problem. That's enough of that real quick. Okay, we talked about A&M Energy Systems Laboratory and the SECO, the energy codes. It looks like, well, it doesn't look like, A&M has already recommended to the SECO people to adopt the 2015 energy code. So that's got some changes in it, and I would just encourage you, we talked a while ago, get your code book and see what those changes are. Everybody knows where they made a change. It's highlighted, it's blocked or marked. So it's easy to see what those changes were from the last code cycle. Anybody in the room familiar with the duct leakage testing that's been around since '09 and how it affected duct additions, extensions? Okay, well, I think it's a good part on the 2015 code. If that duct extension is less than 40 feet, you're not going to have that leak tested. I think that's kind of fair. You know, somebody looked at it and said, well, you know, a lot of rooms getting closed, garage, bonus room, whatever, and they add that duct. Well, didn't seem to make good sense to have to spend that resource for a duct, a single duct extension or a duct that was less than 40 feet. Okay. You, and I'm not being critical here, but us older fellows, we one of the things we do at the agency is write the exam, right? So all the new fellows, Sam was talking about the plumbing and the schools and getting all the, hopefully getting younger folks into our business. One of the things we do, of course, is write the exam. We monitor that exam. We third party, but I chair the exam committee, and I've got 10 subject matter experts across the state that come to Austin with us, usually once a year for sure, sometimes twice. And we are constantly evaluating that exam, writing new questions. And it's a pretty easy process, quite frankly, because the candidate that sits at the computer, he has the ability to make notes. And if there are some concerns on some of our questions, what PSI, our third-party vendor, says is poor performing questions. That doesn't make it a bad question, doesn't make it an incorrect question, or necessarily even a good question. But what it says is sufficient number of people have missed that question. Well, is it wrote correctly? Is it referenced correctly? Or could it be, Sam, where the young people, and there's some older folks getting their licenses, is it that young people may not have the foundation, they may not have the knowledge base on duct sizing and on the things that are important? You were talking about shooting a grade earlier on a sewer line. A lot of our stuff is similar in that regard. So we have added 75 new questions to the exam, and I know Jody was telling me some affiliation on continuing education with ACCA group here in Texas. You guys know the code book in chapter 14 says you have to do a load calculation per ACCA, Manual J, or other approved means. And then chapter 16 says you have to do the Manual D duct design. Well, we've decided with what we're seeing in failure rate and comprehension, the subject matter experts, we have added ACCA, Manual J, and D to the exam. So it takes a while for that to happen, right? All candidates taking the exam after August of this year are going to have questions on those subjects, those disciplines, where they can demonstrate. We're not as good as the plumbers yet, where they have to do a practical. I can't get my group to make our guys do a practical, so it's simply a multiple choice, right? 100 questions, 120 questions. Anyway, we've seen from the enforcement side, there's so many complaints. By the way, we get 7 air conditioning complaints a day at the agency. A lot of that's unlicensed activity. Unfortunately, a lot of it's what we call mechanical integrity, failure to properly install. System's not performing as intended. So you can do the math on that and see how many complaints. So we look at it from the enforcement side and say, wait a minute, maybe these folks aren't getting the right foundation. And obviously at our agency, for a test purpose, we're not trying to train or teach anyone. We simply want to know, can that 4-year minimally competent person pass that exam? If he or she does, they get a license, right? And all that license is a license to learn. I remember my grandfather, I was 16, he took me down, I got my driver's license, and I promptly had a wreck. So, you know, we are redoing the exam, and we think it gets better. Some people disagree. We have, our pass rate today is about 40%. 4 in 10 pass the exam. We've got people that say it's too hard. We've got people that say it's not hard enough. So y'all have dealt with that in your careers too. I maintain, if you're properly prepared, if you have a solid fundamental understanding of the subject, and you know your code book, and that was the other part I wanted to leave with you, is we've seen so many poor installations that don't relate back to the code, which quite frankly, you guys should know, ladies, the code is really written from manufacturer's installation instructions. So if you're opening the installation instructions, reading what it says and doing what it says, you're probably not going to have any problem. We see that these younger folks, not picking on them, they don't know the code book. So our exam now is heavily weighted on code. and on the design part. Legislation, Nancy, as she said, and Lisa, I don't know what you're going to say about that. We have very little to report. There is, how many in the room remember last session, the heartburn, the serious problem that came about with smart thermostats? Anybody ever heard that word? AT&T and Verizon and all these people that wanted to be in the AC business without a license? Anybody ever hear anything about that in the last couple of years? Well, they were successful. And the language had to be changed in our law where if you were a 1702 regulated DPS security alarm person, you could install a smart thermostat on a heating cooling system and not require an AC license. Well, apparently there have been problems. And there is and again, these numbers run together for everybody, but it's House Bill 489. It's authored by Representative Anchia from the 103rd District up in Dallas. And it doesn't affect our agency or our licensed population, as I can tell as I read the bill draft, but it is going to, if it gets to the governor's desk and gets signed, it's going to put more burden on the Public Utility Commission to regulate power companies and those entities that sell smart thermostats, whether you be a co-op electric provider, or if that's who provides your electricity, or if it's Austin Energy, or if it's City Public Service down San Antonio Way, whatever it may be. Apparently there was some problems with their contracts, their language, and it's sufficient that if it gets through the houses and out of subcommittee and the governor signs it, it's going to be a closer microscope on that subject with those people. So that's something for you to know. This next piece, we don't have a House bill or even a Senate number on it. It's some cleanup language that's coming from TDLR, and it basically relates. Do y'all have a recovery fund? Is there anything in your law? Okay.
No. We have by agreement,
Okay.
but no fund. No
I come from a small
fund.
town that many years ago, as the town grew, more and more people got run over at this one intersection. And the authorities wouldn't do anything about it until someone was killed. And now that intersection has a red light. That seems to be how things go, included here. We have a state representative that got ripped off pretty bad by an air conditioning company. And the solution was to hire another air conditioning company to fix the problem. Right here in Austin. No names mentioned to protect the innocent, but at a minimum a permit was required, a permit wasn't obtained. And a host of mechanical integrity problems that were life safety related to gas furnaces, vent pipe, clearance to combustibles, door switches taped closed. Anyway, that state rep will either author or co-sponsor something that will have a consumer recovery restitution fund, and whereby our enforcement lawyers with our existing penalty matrix can sanction a contractor for mechanical integrity. The language says in addition to or in lieu of, that homeowner could select a second contractor to fix that problem, and those funds would come from that key, if you will. Obviously, there's some basic stuff that, the amount that consumer will get will never exceed what the original contract was. And there'll have to be a minimum of 3 bids, so that there's some transparency there. And I don't know how it'll all work out. Don't know if it'll come out of committee or ever make it to the governor's desk, but that's something that you could leave here knowing that there's a possibility of a consumer protection recovery fund for heating and air conditioning work.
John?
Yes, ma'am?
Did they indicate that was only for y'all or trades in general?
I don't know. You may want to talk with your counterparts, our counterparts, and
Yeah, for years I've anticipated that this was coming up and people talked about it. Did you hear how they may fund this fund?
Well, for us, what we've been told is that the lawyers in the enforcement division, were they sanctioned according to a current enforcement plan penalty matrix, were, and I said in lieu of or addition to, that money that lawyer sanctioned that AC contractor, where it now goes to the general fund, goes to the comptroller's office and they do whatever they do with that money.
Well, that general fund's not near as big as they anticipate. Don't count on it.
Well, we know that. I have oil royalties, not bragging, I'm crying, because all of you know it went from $100 to $45, and I'll tell you the truth, it doesn't matter how many zeros are on the end of your ones. At least in my family, we spend what we make, so we're not getting to spend as much these days. I would close with you, and if you've got questions, I'll try to answer them. How many of you in the room, and it's available on the internet, have seen the new governor's occupational licensing blueprint? Seen it?
Yep.
Anybody else? I encourage you to go to the internet, your time, make the time, and just Google up Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott, occupational licensing blueprint. I think it's some reading that you ought to know about. I don't have a dog in that hunt, so what I'm saying, I will tell you this. There's parts of that language I agree with. There's parts of it maybe not. So again, that's what he calls his blueprint. Don't know if that's a plan, don't know if that's a vision, but at least he hit the ground running, it appears. And I'll summarize for you. They're serious, and I like this, even though I'm a state official, government employee, public servant, whatever you want to call it. They're serious about smaller, smarter government. Just ask me, with not getting pay raises or anything else. Probably Lisa, your bunch too, huh? Yours too. There's a trend with our elected officials to be smaller, smarter government, and that isn't all bad. But I don't know that the trades, the skilled trades are in place. We ought to be thinking about doing away with licensing. And I didn't say that. I want you to go read that blueprint. But there are a lot of currently licensed occupations that may not in the future be required to be licensed. I don't. Todd asked me, everybody in the room know Todd McAllister, ACCA? Todd asked me a couple of weeks ago, did I think that TDLR would ever do away with the occupational licensing law? And I don't think so. Life safety, that's certainly associated with the electricity and the gas, the vent pipes, and all those important parts of a proper installation. And then, of course, with our people, our employees, criminal background. So, questions for me? If not, I've given you all I've got at this time.
Thank you, John. Yes, sir. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to protect our license. It should be something you do on a daily basis. I know I have turned in a number of people, had an awkward situation at the Thrall career day. The gentleman that I turned in a year or two ago was right next to me at the table. And pretty well everybody at my table knew what was going on, and it is what it is. You know, you don't have a license, you don't get in my business and start doing some things. So those are extremely important to protect. So if you don't think that this can be taken away, you got another thing coming. I promise you. I've been in the plumbing world for over 40 years, and I've seen some changes that I never thought would happen. And so I've chosen to get actively involved and to protect what I think is a great, great, great career. So keep those things. I mean, the State Plumbing Board is a great example. We need the State Plumbing Board. We don't need to go into the TDLR, as good as they are, and I'm sure that wonderful things they do. I mean, they actually require me to pay, I forget how much a year, $75 to get a sticker on my porta potty trucks. You know, you gotta have that sticker and that number, you know. So when you told me you was with TDLR, I was like, wait a minute, did I? Oh yeah, I pay for those stickers. So I made some notes, and I think the most important one is to make sure you remember to get involved in what we do. The exams that he's talking about and the relevance with our youth, when I can relate it over to the plumbing industry, that's how I think of everything. It's what we are. We're master plumbers, so what we are is we have to teach the craft to the kids that are coming in. It's important to bring those kids in, and we'll have some struggles like you're talking about, but it's our job to train and control that. So bring them in, teach them right, take out permits, and before we jump over to the State Plumbing Board with Lisa, I want to introduce Parker Holt. You've introduced, raise your hand, Parker. Parker is with Higginbotham Insurance, and also, I think you're still with the Texas Construction Association, right? The bills that are in here are important. Most of the contractors in here, except my son, most of us are service contractors. And is there anybody else that's a commercial plumbing contractor? Okay, see, it shows how much I know. There's 3 of you in here. But some of these bills are very important, and so kind of read through them. If you have time afterwards, talk to Parker. These things will directly affect what you guys do in the plumbing business. And the thing I didn't like, my son runs a commercial plumbing contracting company, and the things I don't like about that is the relationship with the general contractors. You 4 know what I'm talking about. They have control. And that's what Parker can help you guys with if you want to get involved with the Texas Contractors Association. One of the things that we're going to have a conversation about when Lisa gets finished, just real quick, I want to drop the bucket in here right now. City of Austin is trying to decide whether they want to go with, get away from the UPC code and go with the IPC. So I need thoughts and opinions. Trevor's looking at me like, whoa, that's a good subject, huh? I have to go to a meeting, I promised Chap I'd go to a meeting with, and I need to know where y'all stand. I know where I stand. I was taught that standard waste and vents, stack those things straight up, and you can do plumbing anywhere in the United States. All this bullshit that comes in with these crazy ass vents going everywhere, it gets confusing.
Tell us how you think.
We don't need a vote, do we? It gets confusing to me, so keep it simple. It's what they taught me when I was a kid. Keep it simple, stack everything up, and you can do plumbing anywhere in the world. So we'll have a quick discussion about that, but in the meantime, let me introduce Lisa Hill. She's with the State Board of Plumbing Examiners, and she is a master plumber, and a great person. And the State Board of Plumbing Examiners is actually a wonderful organization, wonderful board. I think they serve the public and serve our trade.
Leave that there, I might lean on it.
Lisa Hill.
Hello, hello. Good to see everybody. I need to clarify something really quick. John and Sam kept referring to old people. And I want to clarify that it's really mature. Okay. But I do admit my talking points, I wish I'd have made them in a little bit larger font like you had yours. So we're good to go. And I want to introduce Michael, for those of you that haven't met Michael Metz. Raise your hand, Michael, or whatever. We've got Michael doing about 10 different jobs at the board right now, so you could see him anywhere. But he's doing a good job. And John and Sam, I want to thank you, John. Some of your information was really good, and I made some notes there that are good for us too. And Sam, I was kidding you earlier that we were talking about you, but we were talking about you in reference to the school kids and where the new group of plumbers are going to come from, and AC people and whatever. So you're to be commended that you kind of getting that off the ground. We too are going to be very busy with the start of the session and those type of things. I've already had a number of incidental bills come across my desk. I don't know what's going to happen and what's not, of course. We hear rumor of all kinds of things, and I just want to clarify and kind of remind you that we're not necessarily for or against anything. We're going to do what the legislature says we're going to do. And I like to use the term that our rules mirror the law in most cases, but I'll agree with you that sometimes we might confuse some. So we'll kind of see how that goes. We have a governing body of 9 individuals, and there's actually going to be 2, possibly 3 individuals that will be going off the board, and they're appointed positions, and they are, they do govern our board. So one in particular, I think we're going to lose our plumbing contractor. I don't know for sure yet. excuse me, so that may become open, or possibly our, the journeyman plumber. I just don't know yet. We're just kind of ride it out and see. What happens is anytime you have a big change in the captain down there, in this case the governor, a lot of things can start changing, and of course everyone has a new idea. And we got a copy of the blueprint that John was talking about, and I encourage you to read that as well. And I met with Deanne Walker, who is the representative from the governor's office, and she will be talking to and assisting the governor in understanding how some of the regulatory agencies. I think y'all probably met with her as well. So we've put a lot of good information together for her, and they'll keep, we'll be communicating as we go along. One of the things that I expect to hear some more about is probably military people, that sort of thing. And for those of you that don't know, be sure and encourage anybody that's coming out of the military or going in the military, let us know. We actually built into our system whenever we changed our regulatory database, just by a stroke of luck, a way to track military people. And so it's came in really, really handy, and anybody that wants to send in documentation that wants to be noted as a veteran, we can do that. And or if you have documentation where you've been deployed, send it to us so we can get you renewed with no late fees. So we want to make sure that that's out there and that we work on it. And I understand there may be some other changes coming along on that as well. I know our board right now is not particularly interested in raising fees anytime soon. Not to say that the legislature doesn't come to us and say, gee, if you really want all these items that you asked for, you're probably going to have to raise fees. I don't know how that's going to go. We didn't ask for a whole lot. We asked for 3 more people. Well, in asking for those 3 people, and then reading that blueprint, I'm not sure how that's going to go, but we're actually becoming more efficient with all the additional duties and oversight we have to do, and the larger number of licensees that we have, and the increase in exams. So we'll see if we get those additional people. Right now, with the last field position that we hired, and then we're also putting on a staff attorney, which is going to help with our enforcement and various legal matters. We're actually going to be at a point where we've almost recovered on all the cuts that we suffered in previous sessions from employees. So hopefully we'll get at least one, I'm hoping so. And possibly be able to do that without too big of any kind of fee increase or changes or whatever. And for those, we only have 1 inspector. And if you need protection on the way out,
It's all good.
but one of the things that we did on the inspector, the changes, the WSPS, the board had looked at requiring the water supply protection specialist exam for every single inspector. And the plumbers were very instrumental in that, as well as any kind of other endorsement. They wanted to make sure that that inspector knew just as much as they did. And so it was going to become an absolute requirement for an inspector. However, it also was going to be somewhat of a burden on the cities, and so they pulled that back, and now for an inspector, if you want to get an inspector license, if you happen to have been through that water supply protection specialist class, you can get credit for 100 hours now instead of 50. So they upped the hours, and it was kind of a semi-happy medium there. The other thing, and we're trying to adjust it within our system, that's I call them fixes to our regulatory database. The company that actually builds it calls it enhancements. So the difference is one costs money and one doesn't. But we'll see how that goes. But employment addresses, that's one of the things you need to update. now we did change our rule up a little bit, and we would like to be able to know where you're employed and if we want to reach you. And of course, it's required that we have your address in the event that we need to provide some type of notice to you. If you're applying online, there's not a real specific spot yet for you to type in employment address, so to speak. It's there, it says employer, so at a bare minimum, if we had the name, that would be helpful. And I want to encourage everybody to come to our board meetings. You know, they're open, it's everybody, the plumbers and in the associations, and we'll even take AC people that are, and we have a lot of dual people too, a lot of things in common, John. And, but I want to encourage you to come to those meetings and participate in them. There's so many items that we need help on, you know, and we appreciate input. And what we've been doing is during any rule changes, we just flat out have a rules meeting and kind of discuss it, so to speak. And people come up with really good ideas. We are open to everyone. Just want to make that clear. Websites. I am so glad to hear that your new website is up and running. We also have one as well. We don't have ours up and running yet. We have, you know, a very small staff, one person compared to how many they have, but we're getting there. And anybody that has any input or comments, we're open for it. We're about to have a big sit down with staff and do another big push on it. So we're real excited about it. It looks very pretty. And hopefully it'll function well. So share your suggestions. It really takes a team effort. Don't want to use the term it takes a village because that's kind of passé, but it takes a team, and that's, you know, that includes all of y'all and us as well. Always. Does anybody have any questions or arrows they need to throw or anything like that? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, if I can get you to go to one, that would be great. But I do have a question because we get this.
Okay.
When they call the planning board, they say, well, that's on our website. Say something new or important. Where on the website would someone go to get some updated, up-to-the-minute information?
Such as, like, requirements for an exam, that sort of thing.
Where do you recommend they go? Because we do a lot of the hunting for them.
Okay.
But it would be nice to send them to, or do you have a central place on your website?
You know, one of the easiest things for an individual to do is to go out on our website and look at the applications. The applications contain a lot of information, and really they answer the majority of the questions that we get every day. How many hours does it take? What kind of document do I have to have a certified blah blah blah. So we try to steer them towards that. But that's one of the things that is going to change, and I want it to be like the frequently asked question deal, so you can go to the FAQ and pick out what you want to do. And anyone that you call there, for the most part, should be able to answer that question. In any particular event, if you have someone that can't, let me know, and we certainly want to make sure staff's well educated. We have group meetings and try to address what's the most common question, that sort of thing. Because every department gets similar questions, and of course some are specific and we have to forward them. But that's good. Anybody else? Oh man, this is an easy group, I can tell you what.
They're all sleeping. Maybe I should get more candy to throw at their heads.
Yeah, well, I know everybody needs to get back today. There's no doubt about it. And this is a very educated group. And so that makes it a little bit easier to get through things. But if you think of something later on, like you leave and you go, gosh, I wish I'd have asked that, send an email. We don't mind at all. The info@tsbpe.state. No, it's not .state. It's .texas.gov. We're .gov now.
Anymore.
Golly, I've been saying the other one for so long. Yeah, it's .gov. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask, how many complaints do y'all get?
You know, we get a little, right around 1,100 per year. And I'll give you a little history on that. When I came to work here, which was 19 years ago, almost 20, and we did 300. And that's not because plumbers are doing a worse job or anything. That's because of the increase in building. The consumer is very educated now, and you know, they want what they want. So.
What's most of the complaints that you get?
You know, the majority of the complaints are, they start out about money. They really do. They start out about money, maybe a contractual issue or whatever. But when we start looking at them, we look at every aspect of the law. And 9 times out of 10, it's a big part of it is a communication error or a misrepresentation error because they don't communicate that they're going to get 20 foot of pipe instead of 2 foot of pipe. And or in some cases, they purposely misrepresented that. And that's a real problem. So, most everybody gets up and, you know, plans to do really good every day. But we have had some real good luck in district court with an individual that is not licensed. And I suspect he's going to be our poster child for going to jail. We'll see. It's taken a lot of work on him. But he shouldn't be in doing plumbing, period. You know, misrepresentation. Yes, ma'am?
Testing on your end, like when do you think y'all will be looking for your testing to go to the next code?
You know, John mentioned that you're updated to the 2012. We are as well. And we spend quite a bit of time whenever we update codes. The med gas has recently been updated, and we've got a little bit more questions on the med gas that probably might be readdressed just for clarification. And some people interpret things a little differently, you know how that goes, but we're all current as far as the 2012 and the exams and that sort of thing. But you know something that hasn't changed, and we need to remember this as a team. Med gas, when it comes to the health department was actually the initial regulator of medical gas, but I think it's in their statute though, still references a 2001 code.
Wow.
And they're just like stuck and don't want any changes over there. So I need to look into that and see if anybody's doing anything on that. Kind of made me remember it whenever you said something about y'all were updated, and we did too. We just went through there and we're caught up for the time being. So.
Well, didn't they just publish the 2015 NFPA guidelines?
Yeah, we're not quite there yet though. So.
Some interesting stuff.
For us to get on 12 we did good, okay?
We're good.
Did really good. Oh, and one other thing, and then I won't talk anymore either. You know, we have this glamorous position that's open out in the Houston area. And it's a field investigator that works complaints. And, you know, works and practically lives out of their car all day in the Houston area. And it's been open for a while, but we're still very interested. It doesn't pay any big money, but the money is good and the check is good every month. And that's what's important. So we do have that open. And I suspect, for those of you that haven't heard, that we'll be having another opening in our examination center. I recently lost he retired, our chief examiner, which was Calvin Day. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, whenever it was all he could do to walk in that room and tell me, and I don't cry too often, I cried that day. I mean, I miss that guy, I'm telling you. And so we worked together to make sure we were all updated before he left, and it was a pretty big deal. Calvin had been there a long time. And but I'm going to have to open that position, and I'm going to be looking very carefully at the person that we engage for something like that. So probably, I'm hoping we can make some changes along with it. Change is good, so we're real open to that. And one other note, and I'm done. I have 2 minutes left. We recently lost several individuals too within the plumbing trade who passed away. And so if you are aware of someone, we want to know about it. And one of the reasons is we don't want someone to decide to use their license because it's still up on the website. It's happened before, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it doesn't happen again. Those same people that get up in the morning and decide to do wrong, they'll stoop about as low as you could possibly get. So we encourage everybody to communicate with us, and we want to make sure our records are current. As far as an individual that's not with us, you know, your status as military or whatever the case may be, your address. And you can change your address online if you send me an email, but you've got to send me some kind of identifier. If you send me an email that says, this is Bob and my license is 123, please change my address, I'm not going to do it. Actually, Michael's not going to do it. So send us something to identify you, and we'll do everything we can to work with you. We want to protect people's information. It's just, you know, that day and age, the electronic world. But anyway, glad to see everybody. Come see us. Doors open. If you don't like something, tell me. If I don't know it, I can't change it. Not to say that I can change everything, but I'm open to ideas. So come see us.
Thank you, Lisa.
You are welcome. I'm going to make sure I got my paper and not anyone else's.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I got
You know, one of the
There we
things
go.
that I've been in business for a lot of years, and one of the things that I find the most intriguing is when I have to file a complaint to the plumbing board. Most recent one is we did a gas line out in the country. It was, we made a mistake, put some improper fittings in, but we went back and we were correcting our mistakes and trying our best to do everything right and fix it all up. And then apparently when we left, his shower drain started leaking. Whether it's our fault or not, hey, if it was, you can call Sam, I'll go fix it. If it's our fault, fix it. If not, hey, it's somebody else, you know, something else happened, to be honest with you. And so he chose not to call us. He called a local handyman out of Lexington. Handyman came in and did the repair on the shower drain and connected it all back up. And then the homeowner called us up and says, I think you ought to pay this bill. Which bill are you referring to? Let me send you a copy of this bill, he says. So get this receipt in the mail of so-and-so handyman services. This just a little sticker that went across the Home Depot or Office Max receipt and stuck it on there. It said, replace shower drain. So-and-so handyman service, Lexington, Texas. I went, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3 violations here. And so I turned him into the plumbing board, and he wrote his response, and the response was, I've been doing plumbing work all over Lexington all my life. Everybody knows me as a local. How dare you? So the complaints were, the homeowner, you know, we had done a bad job. Okay, well, you know, 35 years of the plumbing business, every once in a while I do something wrong. But I try to make it right. We all do that. You know, and you got the customers. You can't do everything right. But it's intriguing to find some of the responses these guys will do to defend themselves. He was literally, his response was, I've been doing this for a long time. So